No,
Just to endorse the comment you've made, with regard to who's in the staff, because often it comes in as very short notice for I'm fortunate one that basically pulls away. The other process is not away very often. So it's that consciously and in time. So I mean a couple of days notice sometimes to do the staff and getting that to me at times to also appreciate.
Might indicate I'm not doing much else, but
yeah, so I've got a sorry,
Thank you. Comment about around the costs and thinking I've had feedback from smaller operators, cafe, restaurant type people, where the costs of actually maintaining their licenses huge for, you know, making a service available. And so it's a really fine line that we actually work here, because what could we do to actually, for low risk operators, if there's anything to be considered there, to actually make it more affordable to provide drinks on a, you know, with a meal or a, it's not a bar situation, so it's somewhat different, but yeah, the cost of actually having your license is something that is demanded by customers, but very difficult to cover the cost from that point of view if you're not selling a lot of alcohol. Yeah. So it's a really fine line that we walk here as to how we could actually make it simpler so that there isn't the cost going back and burdening those that don't have high usage.
I think a previous used to be considering being in the space against the experience. So that's the system and what it might be what's for people sort of like that actually make it a lot easier when we classify it and the style of the action. I think it's also hard when a lot of the our customers don't understand the fact that the prices are setting around.
We say we're not recovering them, you know, our costs to provide the service. It's actually higher than that, so that's a real play. Yeah.
Probably through you, worship, just following on from understanding the reasons why costs may be implemented. You know, the district licensing committee, in terms of implementing the act in its own right, is also subjected to you know, other entities which formulate, you know, the reasons why we will or won't grant licenses. And so it's relatively complex because we are dealing with the likes of Council, Fire and Emergency New Zealand Police. We're dealing with potentially other councils. So it can be quite a complex space to work in. So that obviously takes up a lot of resource as well. And there are costs associated with that. So just sort of make it clear as well, because you know, while it's our job to implement our law, as it stands, there are other intricacies associated with how we actually get to a decision.
So our recommendation there is not to receive the report. I'll move to the chair and that's what we're going to jump in a second. Sure. It's no further discussion. All those in favour, please say aye. That's carried. Thank you. Second report, very lengthy process that I think we probably started about a year ago. The document and this is on page 40.
Otautau. Yes, I am back again for the adoption of the dog environment policy and bylaw. It has been over a year. I started this in April when I first got to council last year. So it's been a process and it's been a very good one, I think. We've had really high engagement. I think we see that every time. But now we're at the stage of adoption of these two documents. Just as an update from the last time I was at the table, the comms team prepared and ready to go on the public promises and other forms of notification to the community. And the environmental health team is in the process of working signage, some signage has been prepared to be at Curio Bay, particularly like the dogs on that area. And also going to put signage around the town road, so there will be around the sites and student sites that see. I know that there is a large sign currently Curio Bay that Dave Blake's work, the team is working on, but to include a map on that sign so that people can see. So,
Yeah, get just what I told you, over 600 in the initial pre-engagement phase, and also it's budget council. Going through 600 submissions. Small task, so yeah, it's taken 100 years.
Thank you. Just a comment really, because we're at this point, but we are actually going to, well, we are going to be reviewing this again, because there's a few things about it that when we really stop and think about how it will practically unfold, that it's not, I don't think it's certainly not the end. I feel like we need to actually incorporate into our maps another colour code that outlines where dogs are prohibited, not on our land, because it's only our land. So where dogs are allowed to, like Otautau at Curio Bay, that's by covenant on the land. There should be some guidance in our documentation that says that dogs are not allowed in there, so that people aren't under a misapprehension. And the same would be at the living forest there, that they don't want dogs in there either. And so, how we actually are able to do that, I'm not quite well. It would be just colour coded on there. So I would think, because then it gives people with dogs the full picture rather than leaving it open. Well, there's no suggestion that there's any restriction. So I'm not 100% convinced about the Curio Bay things, I think, but we will be going back to review that, and so that will be a good thing. The other one would be that area, reducing the area in the dog exercise area in Wyndham. I'm not sure that we've got that right either. So, but that can come back to us again, I presume, but in the next iteration of this, or is we only focusing on what people have raised?
so it's really your worship. So the next stage of this will be process. As I outlined last time, the same process for. I've talked to the CPO team and said that will likely take place in the second half of 2026. Because the first 6 months is quite full on the community boards. I wouldn't expect that we will be necessarily revisiting some of the points that we've already consulted on in this review. However, amendments, I know that there might be some tension around the exercise area. Unfortunately, the return site that might have been proposed was not viable initially, which is why we came up with that reduction on this time. But if in the amendment process we can identify another area that might be earmarked for a dog park or a suitable dog exercise area, we would look to include that within the amendment process and reconcile. So it would take into account the existing area. And perhaps we could say, let's not have that, but we've got a better option instead. So it may be that we do look at areas that we've already looked at, but it's not my plan to really think something that's been so.
Just sort of further on to what Councillor Keys was saying, I noticed there's some schools where dogs are prohibited, some of them are not. So I'm just wondering, is there a standard rule to that, or is it up to why, how does that come about?
Yeah, that's, I believe, a historic decision made by someone in positions previously. And we weren't able to fully understand why some something. Again, through this amendment process,
think there's some of their sports grounds further, might be on the map, it's no signage or. And just that, show. Some concern with the study as well. And, there's a quantity that wasn't. So that can be looking at that.
I guess one of the advantages of doing the review quite quickly after this, rather than to wait 5 years and then
Yeah.
lots of they'll be waiting for quite some time since the last review to changes that. So that's one of the advantages of going through and getting the slot in now.
There's not one I'm aware of. We do include, say, for example, the living forest. We do include that in our own competitive colour chart, even though it's not typically our land and control of, just for the completeness of the area. So that whole part is regional. And for natural park areas, we do include that. Was previously green, updated it in a new map, so it's like a crosshatch sort of marking it, but you can see yes, and we do different dot as you have to consult with dot for the last one. This is the
This is probably my question around legislation. Like we have our bylaws and it's adherent to the Dog Control Act. Is there, because that act is actually quite old. I remember one of the hearings we had on our dog control policy last year around menacing dogs, and the only legislative option we had was to class a menacing dog, which meant a muzzle. And knowing that there's like other technology available now, is there anything we can do through remits with LG&Z to look at the actual legislation getting up to date as well? Because we have to write policy around the legislation, and it's quite an old piece of tools, I would say. So if we're going back into the review process, is there a way to weave in possible things within the act that we could advocate for some updating? And the example I'm going to think right now is that there's nothing in the legislation that allows us to use modern technology when we're having to deal with local issues and some dogs. We're stuck with an option being 1996 use a muzzle, but there's other things that can be done with it. So would that be done through council? Would that be done through an LG&Z movement? Or would that be like, what's the process to look into that fire up and see legislation?
It's a good question, and I'll just add to the question before I get down to it stuff as well. But was there anything new about the process? Some of the stuff. Some things coming into legislation as restrictive or restrictive with the improvements in it.
No, but I do know that we are some concerns about improvements in dangerous dog types. Yeah, I honestly think any of that from this process.
Sorry, sure. The old man. The 96 Act is actually there for a long time. It's actually pretty good. It's pretty straightforward. There are other measures, as well as medicine and dangerous dogs, to make the stationary illness, and we get disqualified from ownership. If somebody wanted to use a tool such as a shock fence or something to keep the dog in, we can always take it because the law is written in such a way that it's kind of control. So if it says control, then that means the dog ran and followed the beach or whatever it was. We can take that. Yeah, I'm willing to listen to any ideas on that. We don't actually have to have a bylaw under the act, which is weird, but we have a policy. But every council has a bylaw because it gives us local powers. But if there's anything in particular you think we could be involved in ourselves, we can put it in the bylaw. So long as it's not against the act itself. So it's got to be made in favour of the act. That's about it.
Just the process of
Could you just clarify our ability to, include schools in the environment? The land is not owned by the council. Have we got the ability to, is that regardless of public place?
Yeah, and it's around the playgrounds, so it's not just schools themselves, it's around the playgrounds. Because we don't allow them on playgrounds, and I believe that we in the first place, because we can allow on playgrounds outside of school hours and it's around those places, so.
You understand the sense of that, but the playgrounds would be owned by the school. So we do have ability to. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a question that's been raised on the island. It says under multiple dogs on premises, if the husband owns 2 dogs and the wife who lives at the same premise owns a dog, does that count as 3 dogs under the bylaw, or is it allowed?
I think it counts as 3 dogs.
Yeah,
On the same premise.
it's just that it's on the same premise, so there's a couple of cases on the island where this will come up.
it does count as 2 votes because it's a premise situation, not a.
Yeah.
Our previous policy, and where we was I'm not sure. That's what make sure that it is included in the. It's a question of priority.
Are we able to make it?
My understanding is that if it's not their property, then it's missed out. So what would be the need to is if it is missed out, then we include it. And the intent is that, so I don't think it's in the control.
But policy and bylaw and that's all different policy. Yeah.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I'm going back to Curio Bay, sorry. The petrified forest platform is included in our map, but not living forest. It's not in there, and I feel like it needs that aspect to be covered as well, which a different code for other ownership, which excludes dogs, would be advantageous.
Just one Question on resolution 5. I'm assuming that the policy and bylaw will be available online as well. It's just the open where residents talk about inspection at council office, all copies being obtained. A reasonable charge, but I imagine like 2 will also include inspected.
Yeah, just through your worship, that's the requirement from the legislation that we're doing, so just go ahead with their legislation, so yes, it's absolutely available for stuff.
So it's currently available.
Yes, yeah.
So that makes sense. Sorry. Well, actually, I will skip us through the different things. So as you're here, existing resolve that government policy 2025 just to get yes. I'm used to it. So I used to
Thank you, worship. All right, today we're bringing the report back to the council in terms of the district projects in the 5 financial year. This was a conversation that we had previous council meeting. To provide some more transparency around the projects that we are doing in our district. Just like to note that these projects were socialised with the community boards when we do the local projects, so that we're on these coming financial year, but they will also be I'll take the report as read, and any questions.
Through your worship, just, we are involved in the absolute providing a greater overview of the project, so you can provide more feedback of the see in this report. All of these topics of view that might generate a bit of interest. We've been able to cover the today, so the options to schedule sessions might give some further information.
I think that's the first one. There's a number of toilets on there. So there's some different white toilets. You can specify which toilet and get down to this against cover of what's going on at the end. So I do wonder whether a single workshop or something to actually go through the toilets as a whole and everything else. Quite useful. I just want to give it one line. Yeah, any other questions?
And I just wondered, there was mention of the two units, one on the capital, even though one needs to be refurbished, it's one very useful.
In terms of succeeded road, budget here, also subsequent scope of work that's changed a lot. Reactive plastic reuse. So next we are going to have to rewire the whole unit. It's got a heat ceiling, so there's no ceiling activity that we get into to repair the wiring. So actually we will have on ceiling. Have had a price to do that, and that is expensive. So what we would have to do is come back with not only that one, it's two others. It's one chat that we are finding asbestos, so getting old, just due to the fact that the so we tend to the units that we to discuss how we increase budget this year. So
A couple of items that have in progress but off track, we could have a bit more. Right? So it just becomes clear what is off track about it. The 3 or 4 marked like that. And is there a reason that the the report when it's carried on to page 129. Status quo. Okay. Because we do have it on page.
Oh, it's 25, 26.
We don't know much, so we're just leaving it. And
We're just starting going through that process.
so even that it's getting out to market or something, we just have it there. It's easier for you guys than for us to put our heads around so much. Yeah, just helpful there. Thank you. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Worship. For me, this report raised more questions than it answered. And I think that I'm wondering if the workshop idea on seeing what you've got, the report you've got here, and then going and having a workshop where we actually can have nail down where we want further information or how we would want to see it, because it seems to me that there's a lot of money involved in this area of the budget, and I feel like I haven't got oversight on it. And so maybe it's more background information, or maybe I've forgotten or missed things that were included in long-term plans as priorities. But yeah, I would like to see this report coming back on a quarterly basis and when we, to workshop and a workshop to follow up shortly as to what we would like to see or what we need to see in there to cover off those points, so that we have a good understanding of why this area seems to have a lot of carry forward in it that we don't get to go forward and, it sort of says two birds ever, I feel.
Yeah, in terms of what that, it's a bank process that we went through. It's very hard when you're going through that process to get slightly ingredient people when you're going through so many listening to whereas that missing understanding or oversight. And I think that we you taken some of the things too, but also that kind of everyone being aware of what's happening. I think breaking it down in some aspects, some things probably don't get to be broken down, they are a simple one liner, but there are others on there.
Just expect when I was talking about, I'm assuming that this workshop or these workshops is both on around and community homes would be useful, would be in the new training, and would seek that the community boards also attend that workshop. And because I wonder about the role of community boards in managing these homes in the community. So I would endorse that. I understand there's a vacant time out there that has been vacant for some time, and there's a few questions in the community. Have I got that wrong, or has it been addressed? Or
It's been vacant for some time, but should be available.
that would be good, because I understand there's been a person waiting for some months to enter. Is that because the building at the home has been refurbished?
That had been refurbished.
And is that perhaps a further discussion for the workshop about the length of time it's taken for the refurbishments to occur? I guess the community is noticing you are concerned about the availability.
It's really interesting. Next time, species. Contractors on board do speed process. That also helps us keep costs down. We are starting to turn
So it's not an inspection issue, it's not the way in which it's been read, but that can be the implication, it's actually the condition of the unit being replacement systems such as the line. And again, just to do such a community board, it's would be very about this as well. Yeah.
Species as well. Some change the so things to go along with species.
So I don't need to make to a vacancy quickly, but obviously.
Freely. So that Susan was they don't just commission. They
There are some, it's not, I don't agree with that. They just have to agree. My experience of being a board as well, when we use the house as well. It speeds up processes that you have to run through in town to make things go a lot faster. So sort of, and yeah, where there are really the value of knowing where the needs are and also
just one question I want to go through is line by line. Get to leaders in the workshop, but I was trying to understand community facilities. What's the right community yard? So we have property out at what opposite South Roads. And community maintenance team operate out of the yard. And other departments store a lot of gear. What we've done is we've got one of the tidy up. And one of the projects we had for this year was to move the features, basically things. To do that, there is a lot of material that needs to disappear out of the yard, which will allow us to access to those hinges to move. That is old steel beams and bridges, still got failing there. It's stored there for pump stations and things like that. There seems to be a place where stuff turns up and creates problems for us trying to maintain the yard. It's a big area. It runs from Hunt Street right through to Mills Road. So there's a big piece of land. So what we were trying to do is rationalise the people student stuff there, because it does have potential for leasing out. Yeah, so there's a 10,000 budget to look at potential future analysis of what needs to know. Yeah, I was just curious because it showed up as a community facility. I wouldn't know which community board would consult on that. If we want to have a look.
So what I mentioned. Just what cancel place project 6 weeks. There's a project on go to the new building. Show up and according to you, that's special sense.
That particularly yard thing at home site as well. It's pretty cheap to see whether or not We do have another yard in Janet. Just about around the parks and reserves. That's what I'm aware of. To plans. I'm wondering if once it's all done and the community, for example, decides to go bike park through a reserve, is it going to be easy for the, and that wasn't accounted for during this process, is it going to be easy to change designation, whatever's required to enable that path? So I guess I'm asking, is it going to, like these reserve plans are supposed to be, is it going to be easy to service?
So there's a slightly technical answer to district plan does get so if there are significant improvements that the council would like to achieve on a particular facility, the best thing we can do is to get things that's achieve construction of life. But if they don't, if you're in your doesn't, we just have to weigh up significance of the change that's proposed to the reserve. It's fine to that. But the minor things like the path, for example, I don't see. All right, so yeah. So the best thing that we can do at the moment is obviously get significant changes in improvements we like to make in reserves. It's quite enabling.
So it almost sounds like communities would need to account for something that might be attractive to them in the future. Did that in
Yeah, only so if we draw it out of future development, we're aware of that, probably policy things done. Those are the sort of things that we can do. But if the process doesn't require us to develop things.
So these plans are supposed to be continuously reviewed, is that right?
That's what the act refers to. This is a continuous review, but we do have some discretion around that. Generally, practices 10 years again. I can be how really we've taken a relatively long period of time, which is why we've highlighted the staff 20+ years, and there's actually to go through this process. We do acknowledge that it costs a bit of money to do it. It's good to see some of the public issues that have been going to so taking some action. So yeah, I think it'd be good to identify those kinds of needs if they're really start. I can paraphrase your answer, but I think there is a way to adapt to the future.
Thank you. Going back in time to the inspections of our community housing facilities. I would hope that they are completed and someone's checking that they are completed thoroughly on a regular basis, because to me we shouldn't have people living in houses that are going well beyond issues around them, the major. Yeah, I'm concerned that we need to get a real focus on that to be good landlords and be making sure that things are maintained so we don't end up with this problem, except that asbestos removal of it is an issue that we will have to face. But yeah, we've got to get away of actually sending these people on holiday somewhere where we get regular update stuff. So for long-term tenants, because it's not really fair on them to live in the same place without any maintenance, basically, for however long, for a long period of time.
So through your worship, there was such a structured approach to doing the tenancy inspections. So we are picking up on that frequency. See that there's just the landlord with what responsibility there is of this tenancy. By values that may not be immediately obvious, but I see, I would just like to also mention we've done a lot of work around asbestos identification, management response in place. So just because we find asbestos, it doesn't necessarily always need to be a significant issue. Be careful in terms of making sure that, for example, well painted. But I hope that as elected members, what we can take out of what I'm saying here is that we can
Well, it's about being good landlords. And my concern is that we are languishing somewhat on that, and that we leave long-term tenants in places with issues that they may not notice, but we as landlords should. So those regular inspections are vital to actually protect their asset as well as protect them as tenants.
Okay, this is not your area, but I heard the words the Bailey Bridge, and there was discussion a number of years ago about where was it and was it in good order. It might be useful for you to get from
This kind of question.
to come back to the new council about, is that an asset to be disposed of because it's not really fit for purpose, or can it be repaired and used? Just good.
Yes, I've sort of got three questions. One of them hardly answered, but just regarding that mold, I see one of the reasons given is the here in plants. I'm just wondering if we've got themes to either require either behaviour on more than single box. The other question of the Tuatapere Library, I said, right, remember that day we did that visit out there, there was some issues that was etc. So 3 years we should be just waiting. But they're not going to last. So the other one I noticed on the list of projects, there's been some quite significant savings on some completed. So that money that's saved, is that just go to reserves, or is that to show other projects, or what is it? So depending on whether it's one thing, obviously if it's the it's like loan bucket. So all the waiting for, so balance with that.
I don't see that working as if those policies good solution. Policy
So while I was there, still a lot of good, solid foundation there. So not starting from scratch, if you like. There are some reserves where we want significant refresh. For a while, we're just reviewing, potentially adding more into it, but on the basis of it's. The local room still for purpose, so it's a couple of amendments that's quite, I've just been convicting sitting in the room with the car. My settings and everything's still quite dated in there, but it's still doing the job.
Through you, Your Worship, sort of following on from Julie's comments and Paul's to a degree around the community housing space. And I know this might be a bit of a rarity. Do we have communication with our tenants around times when they may not be within the premises? So, or can we incentivize them, you know, if they can move out of those premises to do some relatively minor maintenance work? Do we actually have those conversations? So as an example, okay, you know, planning on going on holiday, vacating for maybe a month of the year. Is there some way that we can help those people relocate to maybe some other council-owned properties for a certain period of time so that we can actually do that maintenance? Do we have those conversations? So, through Your Worship. So, some pushback from tenants. Recently, so, some of these tenants have been in there for a long time. These are big houses. They don't like to move. Some of them don't. So, see it, see it. Long-term tenants. Yeah. Yeah, we guided by the tenants, essential tenants. So the things that we can get. Is we approach them. Speak. So, you know, we do as much as we can. We the tenant is not right. So in terms of, if you look at proportionally the number of times that we put into this situation with a tenant where it was an emergency situation, and that lead-in time to be able to say, hey, look, this is the maintenance required on this particular building over this period, you're happy with that proportion in terms of what we do as a council to satisfy the needs of that tenant as well as ourselves? I would like the ability to mitigate the position. So, in those tenants that would. I guess with the increase in the number of inspections, we they're older. Yeah, it's things happening. Speak. See.
picking up small things, some major things. Moving David Song. He's now going to see some inspections. We are now to units. We are proactively trying to mitigate the risk of units.
Okay, and one last question, Mark. Is there anything else that we could do as a council, or are there any other sort of organisations outside of council that could help us in a way to try and help us through some of these challenges or issues, say the community trust about Southland or other? Do you have any ideas on that?
I think it's that social support. Students. Out of a place it's been in years. That's a big impact. Not only weeks, but all of a sudden the whole office took upside down. So it's trying to manage that. Well, a unit that's healthy.
Thank you. I don't think that's a very it's a good start to getting into this. It's interesting when you look at the it's done with such a wide range of past, but in a very community facing council. And it's good to see a lot of structure. But I think not forgetting the future. Maybe a CDH here just down the road that worked very well with the community housing, good relationship with the tenants, actually took care and proactively with stuff for free. That work now. So there's local mechanisms that we can the boards and community that work in this space. And also reflecting on the fact that this is all linked. And the last council meeting, project carry forward, there's a number of very small projects that they all kind of build out into maybe trying to basket up with a lot of projects. And it's good to see it expand. I think we can just sort of navigate around some of these opportunities in front of us and do things differently. Structures and also get good reporting and get something to get for so it's been very good discussion. I knew this would be a very good discussion. Breaking some of this up into the workshop going forward. Hopefully the next time carry some of the pieces on as well and go through these projects and so we've got a very easy introduction of some of its season.
Yeah, could we actually ask to come back, all of us to come back?
I mean, we can add a recommendation B. Instead, this comes back and I think we can.
And if I may, we could possibly also have a soft copy of this one, whether I mean something in Excel that one can sort through and so on. Because last FNA meeting, we had this around 20% under delivery than promised. And I know this is a small part of it. And gentlemen, I don't want to look at the report and we go all get tossed in the mouth. But the more we can dig into this, we don't want to have another situation like that.
Yeah. And going back in time again, I think probably the room, but 2018, I was talking about having the new IT system project delivery with councillors and group chairs and everything with client and stuff. Well, we haven't quite got there with that software, but having that link some capacity to cover if they think some of we should start seeing toilet refurbishments, to go and say, well, we've got 400 paid for refurbishments, that's going up on that one, that one, and that one. That's going up on that, it feels operational, but essentially with this community facing stuff, we are closing in, we need to build up, we need to understand. You've got your A and a B, you make her and see. That is better. You're trying extra work, you've got other kids coming in, to live in, so not be good to snow down, if you come back. To count, I give you a negative state policy. I think I'll 25 past.
Well, this is support world.
James spoke.
Oh, yeah. There's a few. Yeah.
Wait, oh, not long. You know, like, in like, how diabolical. Stop, don't even go on.
Well, but sorry, I'm looking.